It is a very warm welcome to Fox Sports to the one and only John Kavanagh, head coach and founder of Straight Blast Gym in Ireland and home of many great martial artists, most notably, of course, the former two-division UFC champion, the notorious Conor McGregor. He's also co-founder of the Wimp to Warrior training program. John, thanks very much for coming on, mate.
It's a pleasure.
A lot to discuss today, of course, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask first about the Notorious One. How is Conor? How is his recovery going, and when can we expect him back?
Yeah, I think the physical stage of recovery is pretty much complete now. He'll be very soon switching over to starting to train mixed martial arts again. That's when all the fun begins. You've seen his post there himself. You don't have to wonder what he's doing. He posts about it. He's been enjoying himself over Christmas, but he's ready to enter that more serious phase of training and not enjoy the good life as much and get back in the gym and start getting ready for another contest.
Well, he's looking absolutely huge. He's bigger than he was at 170. I got to ask, is 155 still the preferred division for you guys? Will he make that cut again?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be all that difficult, to be honest. He's made some fairly dramatic weight cuts in the past. 55 seems to suit his frame pretty well. So at the moment, yeah, maybe light heavyweight he's more suited towards. But I think by the time it's probably summertime we're looking at for him to step back in there, the weight will be back down again.
Well, if we are looking at a summertime, like a mid-year return, it's probably not going to be for the lightweight title right away. Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, likely to contest the belt at UFC 274 in May. If it were up to you, who does he fight next?
I'm just excited to see him back in there. It's always a big occasion. There's not much like a McGregor fight week and a McGregor fight night. It doesn't really matter. You say any name and it's exciting. Probably the Diaz trilogy would be a fan favorite. But yeah, let's just get him back healthy, back ready, and back competing.
It sounds great. Often the common sentiment around Conor McGregor, particularly around, I guess, the more casual MMA fan, is that, oh, he's past his prime. But I often say that it might sound a bit funny, but I don't think we've seen the best Conor McGregor return, if that makes sense. I feel like after the Khabib loss, took a year and a half out, fought Cowboy, absolutely dusted him, but, fought him at a weight class that wasn't sort of the weight class that he wanted to be in. It didn't really have a lot of, I guess, competitive bearing in terms of rankings, and then took another year off, fought Dustin, employed that boxing stance that we saw, which he later explained was because he was using that as a tune-up fight for Manny Pacquiao. He then vows to take him seriously mid-year and he breaks his leg in the first round. It's just a series of unfortunate events for Conor. How frustrating has that been for you as his coach?
Very, in a word. Especially the last one, because the training camp went really well. I thought we made great adjustments. Take my obvious bias subjectivity out of it and just look at how the first round was going in terms of shots landed. Conor was I believe almost 2-1 on the shots landed standing. Went for a guillotine, ended up on his back, but defended himself well on the ground. I thought if we went into the second round, it would continue how it was looking on the stand-up portion of the fight, which was Conor landing quite well. And when Conor tends to land, people tend to fall. So I was fairly confident how it would play out in the second round or maybe the third round. And then just as I'm picking up the bucket and I'm walking towards the gate, I see him sitting on the ground. I wasn't too sure what had happened, and obviously what transpired is he'd just caught that leg badly and broke it. But thankfully now that's all healed up, and as he says, he has a titanium shin to throw at people's heads moving forward. So who knows? Might be positive at the end of it all.
We can't wait. It's certainly better for the UFC when Conor McGregor is back and fighting and having a good time. Last one, John, on Conor. One of my co-hosts on this show, Alexander the Great Volkanovski, around the time of UFC 266, they had a bit of back and forth, he and Conor, on social media. Is that a fight that you guys would be interested in, whether at featherweight or any other weight division?
It's very unlike Conor to have a back and forward with another UFC fighter. Usually very quiet and reserved. Look, like I said, he's won a couple of belts at this stage. He's He's earned all the money he was going to earn. Well, he's going to earn more money, but he's achieved all those targets. I'm sure he set himself and exceeded them. So now at this stage, I believe it's more about exciting fights and doing other things. So whether it's Volkanovski or it's Holloway, it's Tony Ferguson, it's Diaz. For me, the important thing is just to get back training, get back improving ourselves, and get back in there competing, doing what he does best.
It's best to ask his coach about this. Will he ever make the cut to 145 again?
Nah.
Okay. Good to hear.
I don't see that.
Okay. Well, such is Conor's transformation that I'll tell you what, he might actually have a chance against one of the other co-hosts on this show, Robert Whittaker, who is in action, of course, in a couple of weeks' time. UFC 271. What a matchup. What a rematch. This is going to be huge for this region. How do you see that playing out, and how excited are you by this matchup?
Very. They obviously met and it went the way it went. And since then, they both have had, a couple of good outings. Whittaker, for me, is I love watching him. And he's just kind of that hard-working guy, head down, humble, hard-working guy. You feel that all the great skills he had came through long hours in the gym, really pushing himself. Israel maybe a bit more gifted, and things came to him maybe a little bit easier. I hate to pick one over the other because I think they're both fantastic fighters, but I probably, due to the way they match up, due to stylistic reasons, I would lean towards Israel repeating what he did before already. But that's not to say it's not maybe 55-45 fight. It's very, very close. Whittaker's had some great wins since that loss. But Izzy is I just think he's very, very special, Only that one slip when he went up a weight class. Since then, looking phenomenal. And he just has an air of invincibility around him. And he just has a grace of movement that's a joy to watch. So, yeah, as much as I hate to say, I'd lean towards the style bender.
Well, it's so interesting that you bring up tactics. It's not every day that you get to pick the brain of one of the most successful coaches in the game. So let's get into tactics for that fight. For the longest time, I guess it's been oft repeated that, or oft suggested perhaps, that Israel Adesanya's weakness is potentially on the ground. As you mentioned, Jan Blachowicz had some success in that area. Would you say that is the key to victory for Robert Whittaker, utilising his grappling and his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu?
Absolutely. If he goes in with the same plan as last time, and he's a fantastic striker, he's had great success with that against other opponents, but I just don't think he's going to be able to do that to Izzy. Izzy is just an absolute sniper. Everything seems to move in slow motion for him, so I don't think it'll be any great secret. Even looking at the big heavyweight boys there last week in Ngannou, what happened? He turned into a wrestler. And, both guys are very good strikers, but it eventually became down to the wrestling. And I'm sure Whittaker and his team have been breaking down that Jan fight and seeing if they can use those tactics, because I do think if it becomes a kickboxing match, it is he again. Possibly if Whittaker, he doesn't have Jan's size, let's be honest, but possibly if he can bring in a grappling heavy approach, maybe he can do it. But that's not to say that Izzy didn't look comfortable and he's defending himself well against a big light heavyweight. So to be back in there with middleweights, maybe he can do well on the ground too. So it's a super close matchup, and it's one of those fights which make MMA very special. There's a lot of matchups, especially in the boxing world, where we kind of know going in, this is going to be very one-sided, whereas with MMA, we repeatedly have these fights where it's hard to call who's going to be the winner, and I suppose it's us, the fans, that are the real winners.
Yeah, last one, I guess, on this fight. You mentioned Rob's improvement. He's just been on a killer's row. He didn't cry, didn't ask for the immediate rematch after he did lose to Israel, but he went and beat Kelvin Gastelum, Darren Till, Jared Cannonier, of course. What
a group.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's just going on an absolute tear. if you are Eugene Berman and the team of Israel Adesanya, what are you doing? What are you telling your fighter to do in order to avoid not losing that belt that you have against a fighter who's coming back with a vengeance?
Be easy. Be like water. Do what he does. Don't be, I wouldn't be overly concerned about him bringing a grappling heavy matchup. Most guys have tried to grapple Izzy at some level. There's not really, I don't see anyone anyway in the middleweight class that's able to trouble him in that area. But, you're going to take some comfort. Even look at the scenes we're looking at there. Certainly Whittaker has that ability to do that. But I certainly wouldn't be overly trying to fill him with fear and worry about a range that maybe there's a perceived weakness in, because I don't really think there is. He's, like I said, he slipped against a big, strong, light heavyweight. No middleweight's been able to even come close to doing that. And, most of Whittaker's fights are won on the feet. He's kind of has that explosive in and out kickboxing style. So, Izzy, just be Izzy. Go do what Izzy does.
Just be Izzy. That's great advice. Well, speaking of Izzy, I've seen him on a couple of promotional videos on your website. That is the Wimp to Warrior website. A big project of yours, and some might remember the old show with Jens Pulver that aired right here on Fox Sports many, many years ago. You guys have continued the program in gyms across the globe. And for those who are new to it, I guess what can you tell us about Wimp to Warrior and why you've decided to build it up the way that you have?
Yeah, so that's actually why I'm out here in Sydney doing a bit of promotional work. We're relaunching under a new brand. You can see I'm boldly wearing the T-shirt here, trainalta.com. You can go on there and read all about it. But what it's about is about giving. There's a massive number of fans of MMA worldwide, and I can't think over the last decade or two how many times I've been contacted by fans saying, "I'd love to give it a go, but it's an intimidating prospect of walking into a gym and not really knowing what to expect." Whereas the great part of the Warrior Trainer program is that you get a group of 20, 30, 40, 50 people all starting together day one, all starting different shapes and sizes. We've had a bunch of grandmothers and grandfathers do this. You're taken step by step through a 100-day program. And the culmination is that you have the opportunity, if you wish, to do your first amateur MMA fight. And there's some dramatic physical changes that happen over that 20-week period. But for me, the most exciting part is that the mental health changes that come through combat sports. I think there's no better way of gaining confidence and learning new skills than through combat sports. It's kind of like the world's best kept secret that I believe some of the best health benefits are in combat sports academies. And what we're trying to do at trainalta.com is to make it have an easier on-ramp for people that are, maybe haven't done sports in a long time or ever for that matter. We've had plenty of people come in their 30s that haven't done anything at all, but love the idea of mixed martial arts. Everybody at some stage was kind of interested in Bruce Lee or Van Damme or depending and now with the massive promotions like UFC and Bellator and ONE FC, more and more people are interested in trying this at some level. And here we are. We have this program all over the world now. Obviously started in Australia by a UK guy that moved here. Richie Cranny did an amazing job with the program, and now it's actually exploding worldwide, and it's not slowing down.
Are you enjoying? Australia seems to have taken to it very, very well. Is there a particular reason that it was Australia? Why such a focus on us here in our backyard?
Yeah, who would have thought Aussies would like having a dust-up? That's truly shocking news. It's like saying Irish people enjoy having the odd beer, Yeah. To be honest, it began here, and that's where it started, and that's I believe why it has the biggest foothold here. But I don't think it's going to be any different when we move more strongly into North America and spread across Europe and everywhere else in the world. I think at some stage in everybody's life, they're interested in learning how to defend themselves and want to test themselves in the ultimate proving ground. It's having a confrontation, a fight of some sorts in a controlled and safe way. And few things will test you, like preparing for, training for, and then eventually having what one guy called it, an organized confrontation. So I just think it's something in our DNA that in school growing up, it was, which kid was the fastest kid and which kid was the best fighter. They were the two that kind of stood out on the schoolyard. And let's be honest, we're all just kind of large grown-up kids.
Certainly relate to that, I'll tell you that. John, you certainly seem to have a lot on your plate. I think it's fair to say, as you mentioned, you're training, you're coaching rather, some 60 pro MMA fighters. I got to ask you about your passion for coaching. What inspires you, I guess, to remain involved in projects like the Wimp to Warrior and just keep, I guess, meeting new people and coaching them to the best they can be?
As a coach, I got incredibly lucky getting not just Conor, but a group of guys like him early on in my career. In terms of coaching, I'm probably still young-ish, being I just turned 45 2 weeks ago. But I kind of got to achieve a lot of the goals I sort of set out early on with, winning a UFC championship and an Ultimate Fighter trophy, and then a bunch of European titles and so on. And what the Warrior Training Program kind of brought back to me is actually why I get into martial arts to begin with. It was to try and give people, because it's what I got from it, was to try and give people self-confidence. I don't think there's a better tool for improving your self-confidence and your self-belief than combat sports. And now, as I've been doing this for a couple of years and we have pretty big programs, it's sort of almost a running joke that myself and Eugene over at City Kickboxing, we both regularly break 100 people doing each season. And there's a bit of a friendly rivalry who has the record. And I think it's my record at the moment, but I'm sure he'll get ahead of me soon enough. But, look, it's all these messages we get from people that maybe didn't fit in at other sports or not too interested in running on a treadmill, but they found this, which was great for their physical health. And like I said, most importantly, at the end of it, being able to use the skills and learning to be comfortable in a very uncomfortable situation, learning how to defend yourself and applying that to other areas of their lives, whether that's dealing with a bad relationship or changing, having the courage to go for a different job because they're miserable in the one they're in. And look the situation we've gone through over these last 2 years. Talk about learning how to deal with uncomfortable situations. And thankfully, it would appear we're kind of coming out the other end of that now, and gyms are filling back up again. So what a great opportunity to try something different, try something new, a new you for 22. That's actually a good phrase there, isn't it? New you for 22. I'm going to make a T-shirt out of that.
Quickly, get on that as soon as you can. John Kavanagh, I tell you what a pleasure it is. You're an inspiration to many. I've got to thank you so much for your time here on Fox Sports. We really appreciate it. Can't wait to see everyone get back involved, particularly Conor McGregor. The world is watching, the world is waiting. We can't wait to see what you guys come up with, and all the best for the future.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, and we'll see you soon.